Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.
Good morning everyone. Today we are going to have the Hindu analysis of 4th August 2021. Let us see which are the important articles. Yes, most of the articles relates to our mains examination. So accordingly we will take input here. First of all, we will take overview of all these articles, then we will discuss them and take input from these articles in detail. First article, US is back and willing to lead the world. Basically there is one article on page number 6, editorial page. It is talking about the recent strategic refocus of the US from Afghanistan and Iraq policy of last 20 years to maritime Asia. Okay, how recent, let's say, diplomatic outreach of the US in different countries in Asia, especially maritime Asia. This shows there is a strategic refocus of the US foreign policy towards new area, Indo-Pacific area. Okay, so accordingly we have to take input here, how new leadership in US is bringing changes in Indo-Pacific region, Asia-Pacific region. Okay. International relations GS2 paper. Now poverty in India is on the rise. Again one article on page number 6, it is talking about increase in the poverty, and the article, though it mentions a very good data, but important what we have to understand the reasons behind increase in poverty along with that data. Okay, so we will take input from GS2 paper social justice part and GS3 paper economy part. Okay. Then as the parliament is in session, there will be some bills, important relevant bills being passed in the houses of the parliament. Recently, yesterday Lok Sabha passed 2 bills, Tribunals Reforms, Rationalization and Conditions of the Service Bill 2021, and the second one, Essential Defence Services Bill 2021. Okay, so some basic points about these bills, provisions in those bills, we will understand that. Then Insolvency Code has strayed from its intent. Now some of the highlights of the Parliamentary Committee report, Standing Committee on Finance, it has given report on Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code and it's working in last 5 years. Okay, so how it has strayed away from its original objective, intention through different, let's say, amendments brought by the government from time to time to this IBC. We will understand what are the highlights of that report here. Okay, next, report by Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labour. It is talking about the requirement of social justice and welfare measures by the government, looking at the vulnerable sections of the society like migrant labourers, women and poor people of the society, how the pandemic has impacted them. So the specific, let's say, report by the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labour on impact of pandemic on the labour. Okay, so highlights and the recommendation of the committee. Why it is important? Because we are going to use this in the mains examination. We should give reference to this Parliamentary Committee reports whenever we are writing steps, measures, recommendations. Fine. So let us go into details. First article, getting back in business in the Indo-Pacific. Name of the article on page number 6, it is talking about that the new leadership, presidency in US last year has made a significant change in its foreign policy, outreach to Asia-Pacific region, Indo-Pacific region, how it is changing in recent times. First of all, let me read the question. What kind of question we can expect? You can see here, the new leadership in US is looking for a strategic refocus away from Afghanistan towards maritime Asia. Analyze the statement with reference to recent diplomatic outreach of US to Asian countries. Okay, so very good question. Such kind of question can be asked. First of all, let us understand what is this diplomatic outreach to Indo-Pacific region last month through carefully choreographed visits of his, or we can say President's 3 top officials. Okay, let us understand how this strategic refocus is happening through these visits. First, Deputy Secretary of State visit to Japan, South Korea and Mongolia. Okay, so she visited Japan, South Korea and Mongolia, these three countries, and there she tried to emphasize the good relations, positive relations between US, Japan and South Korea also. Also there was trilateral meeting between Japan, South Korea and USA, and some of the concerns, conflictual relations areas between Japan and South Korea, US tried to resolve them in this trilateral meeting. Along with that, its visit to Mongolia. So Mongolia is neighboring country to China, and though we can understand it is having good relations with China, Mongolia from time to time seeks to assert its independence, and therefore good relations with USA are a benefit to Mongolia also. So now USA has outreached to Mongolia. You can see these different countries are surrounding to China. You will understand how it is directed towards China and in the maritime Asia. Then Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin III visit to Singapore, Vietnam and Philippines. As it is Secretary of Defense, largely the relations were defense cooperation. And in his visit he has categorically emphasized that whatever the China has, let's say, claims over the South China Sea, that goes against international law and US does not recognize them. Okay, those claims. So it has asserted at the same time, if let's say the interests of the US are under threat, then US will not think twice about confronting. But US has made very clear that US is not willing to confront China. US is not willing to confront China. That is categorically, let's say, categorically said by all these secretaries here from time to time. Now in the Philippines and Singapore, basically US is trying to increase its military presence. Okay, military presence. For example, if we are talking about Philippines, it has, let's say, made one agreement, and it is talking about the visitors forces agreement. So that particular agreement helps maintaining US military presence in Philippines. The same case is with Singapore. Okay, so it is increasing its military presence, it is making allies in maritime Asia region surrounding China. Okay, defense allies. Now the third visit, it is talking about recent visit of Secretary of State to India and Kuwait. So one day visit to India, met with Prime Minister, External Affairs Minister as well as National Security Advisor. Earlier lectures we discussed about that outcome of that summit. No significant agreement signed, but the important areas of discussions: first, Afghanistan; second, it talked about the rights issues and civil liberties issues, and third important area where we can say that the Secretary of State had discussion with External Affairs Minister and India's foreign policy. It talked about so first one is Afghanistan, rights issues, and Indo-Pacific. Third one is Indo-Pacific, and it talked about Quad grouping here. Okay, so we can see here the total convergence on the issue of Indo-Pacific between two countries, and US has, let's say, helped to maintain India's strategic autonomy, and by saying that Quad is not military grouping. Okay, so Quad is not military grouping, right? Rather it is, let's say, grouping of like-minded people who wants to ensure rule of law, and we can say some common shared values it wants to promote here. On Afghanistan, more convergence than the divergence. Okay, and we can say it has raised some concerns over the rights issues, democratic civil rights. Okay, so this is how these three visits in last 1 month in different countries of the Asia region, especially maritime Asia surrounding China. Okay, so what this suggests here? So what do these three visits signal? First thing, you should understand that there will be let's say the policy of US towards China and Indo-Pacific. China and Indo-Pacific will be in tandem. Okay, simultaneously it will have some kind of common areas while seeking such policies. The second thing that let's say outcome of or the signal from these visits just a moment. Continue. The second important outcome of these visits we can take here or consider here that relations with China will revolve around the three areas: adversarial relations, competitive relations and cooperation. Okay, so in three different areas US will play with China in, let's say, have the competition, especially in terms of trade and economy. It will have cooperation, dialogue in certain areas. If you are talking about the climate change area or such kind of areas, there US wants to cooperate with China. And adversarial, whenever China is having some kind of aggressive policies in Asia region and South China Sea region. Okay, so you should be aware about such terms whenever we are writing answers in IR section. And the third thing, US wants to confront with China, is willing to confront China but not alone, but by making allies. Okay, by making allies in Asia region surrounding China. It wants to have the integrated deterrence. Very good term you can use in your answer. Integrated deterrence. This term is given by US Secretary of Defense. This integrated deterrence says that whatever the deterrence towards China that US willing to have, it will be not only from US but through a coalition, through an alliance of these countries led by US. This is called as integrated deterrence. Okay, so such kind of strategic terms you can use in your answers in IR section. Fine, any question? Have you understood how the recent changes by US foreign policy are towards Asia? We can expect such question. Yes.
So, by visiting of the US in Asian countries, they are going to be maintaining their commanding power in some developing countries as well as to maintain the military power to the and China especially on China to control of that country as well as to control their development also. It may be effect now, sir, for the China.
Yes. US recognizes that Afghanistan, Iran or these countries are not the threat at present. Rising China, its economic and military power is going to be the threat in future. Now this threat is recognized by the new leadership in US and therefore it is willing to make changes in its foreign policy. These visits are basically giving signal towards that kind of strategic refocus. It is not only, let's say, dominance in terms of economic terms or trade, something like that. Rather, we have to think from the strategic aspect. US has been, let's say, the dominant player after, let's say, collapse of USSR. Since 1990s, the sole superpower we can say. Since 1990s, last 3 decades. So, US had led the world. Okay. Both in terms of economic power as well as military power, but now rising China is threat to that power. Okay, and from, let's say, when we look at the earlier presidential shift, there were some kind of, let's say, concerns regarding whether US will be able to lead the world. But now US has, let's say, shown willingness to lead the world and confront China whenever, let's say, such areas emerge. Okay, it wants to, let's say, rally other countries behind it. This is what the leader do, right? Okay, so common interest, common areas of interest, they are finding those common areas of interest and then they are cooperating with these allies. Okay, so major area of concern for those Southeast Asian countries, ASEAN member, is how China is making its claims over mineral rich, resource rich South China Sea, strategically located South China Sea. So US is continuously always focusing on cooperating with these countries, Vietnam, Philippines, Singapore, okay, even Taiwan. So all these countries, small countries, are threatened by China. Okay.
China is deliberately doing the military power and some political power they are influencing to occupy the resource.
Yes. And where India stands in this Indo-Pacific policy of US wants India to, let's say, act as a pivot to its policy. Okay, as a member of Quad, or we can say as the strategically located country in Indian Ocean region. India is very important for US in Indo-Pacific policy. Fine? Okay. Yes. Yes, tell me.
Sir, in this particular article, sir, the last point which is mentioned as what were the three visits signal, we can clearly see that the Deputy Secretary was sent to Beijing, not exactly Beijing, but to a province in China, and we can see that the Secretary of State was sent to India, the Deputy was sent to China, but the State Secretary was sent to India.
Yes.
What kind of signal does this? Is there any kind of signal it is trying to send, sir, where the Secretary visits the PM of our country, the EAM of our country, whereas the same did not happen in China?
Let's say small thing here we can add that when the Deputy Secretary went to China, the major focus was, let's say, to highlight the human rights concerns in Xinjiang province and we can say Hong Kong region, their citizens. So one concern was that one, and other concern regarding, let's say, modalities of the bilateral summit. We can say that may happen between the two leaders of the country, US and China, on the sidelines of G20 summit later this year. Okay, so that's why the lower functionary, we can say. But in India, the major areas were discussed, right?
Yes, sir. They met with the PM, he met with the PM,
Yes.
EAM, and all the.
Yes.
The concept of Indo-Pacific, which you are just.
Yes.
It was integrated deterrent.
Yes, and later this year there may be visit between US President and India Prime Minister. So maybe some kind of, let's say, decisions may be taken in future, because last month or last month the visit by Secretary of Defense to India was also there, if you remember about this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. Okay, fine then. Moving on to next article. It is talking about poverty in India is on the rise again. So the writer in initial part is saying that since 1973 there is continuously decline in absolute poverty numbers in the country. Okay, but in last 5 to 6 years there is increase in poverty. Okay, so there is no clear data by the present government, as, let's say, the surveys were not conducted by the present government, and if they are conducted, the data was not put in the public domain. It was not released. You know, that was accidentally leaked also on the internet, that data, and that data is used here as a relevance. You can see the poverty head count ratio percentage wise, it has increased to 30% in rural areas from 2011-12 levels, 25% to 30%, and overall if you talk about 21.9% to 25.9%. Now number of poor people, this absolute number was actually declining from 2004. You can see the numbers were declining, but after that it increased. So this is not good signal. This is not good signal. And according to Tendulkar Poverty Committee, the poverty line that was decided, so that also increased. Okay, that means poverty line increased. However, the number of people falling below poverty line is, let's say, we can say number of people increased there. So from these numbers, we can use these numbers whenever we are writing some arguments that the absolute number of poor people and overall poverty is increasing. Supporting facts you should mention from this. But the reasons which are mentioned by the writer in the end in this article, first of all, yes, we can understand in 2016 demonetization step, the poor people in the country face the problem. Those informal workers working in the micro and small enterprises, they face the problem here. At the same time, in 2017, when GST reforms were introduced, again MSME sector was the sector which was hit hard. And then later on the economic downturn started, not only in India but throughout the world. And yes, the same continued later on. And we have seen failure of 4 engines of growth in last few years. Which are these 4 engines of growth? You can use this in your answer. First, public expenditure. Second, private investment. Third, exports. And fourth, private consumption. This is how these are considered as 4 important engines of growth, economic growth. Now you can see first, public expenditure, looking at the fiscal constraints that both central and state governments are facing in terms of revenue generation. So they are continuously focusing on fiscal consolidation. Okay, so more and more fiscal space is not made available to increase the public expenditure. How public expenditure helps in economic growth? Public expenditure creates the demand. It increases the demand. How? Public expenditure in, let's say, increasing the amount of salary. If you are talking about salary of the civil servants, public servants that you are going to be the in future, how we have seen last year, it has increased the number of, let's say, incentives to the public servants. Government wants to increase the demand. How? Because the disposable income increases, then automatically the consumption increases. It creates demand in the economy. Automatically the economic cycle starts again. The same is thing for infrastructure investment by the public expenditure or through the public expenditure. It creates, let's say, employment, it creates investment, and automatically the income levels increases, consumption increases, and the economic cycle is fueled. Next is private investment. Now private investment in last 1 or 2 years has declined. The let's say the capital investment is not happening, and therefore as a result we are witnessing low aggregate demand in the economy. Okay, low aggregate demand because of low private investment in the economy. The third, exports. Since 1991, when we had opened our economy, the exports have always increased. Exports have always increased, but the figures for last 5 years shows that the overall 5-yearly average in last 5 years has declined. Okay, so export led growth is not there, and we can see that the Atmanirbhar Bharat policy that adopted last year by the government, basically we are moving towards import substitution to some extent. At the same time, the export led growth is not advocated by the government now. The focus is not there. So this is not in question. And lastly, private consumption. Private consumption, surely last 1 and 2 years, disposable income or the money is not available with the people because the incomes have fallen down, unemployment rate has increased, savings rate of the people also gone down because again the disposable income is less, and because of that the private consumption is also this. When the private consumption is less, there will not be demand creation in the economy. Okay, so in this manner you should be understanding the relationship between these engines of growth with economic growth. Okay. Okay, now finally we can see in last 1 or 1.5 year, because of COVID-19 pandemic also, there is in decline in economic activities. We can say decline in demand, aggregate demand, and overall there is decline in private investment, and therefore low economic growth. Fine. So in this manner you should understand the reasons of low economic growth and subsequent increase in poverty levels in the country. Are you getting this? Any question here? Okay. Now moving on to next article. Lok Sabha passes 2 key bills without debate. Of course, actually there is continuously let's say the opposition on the floors of the houses continuously creating rukus, and therefore the government is not willing to discuss at all these bills, and without discussion they are passing the bills. To some extent this is not good for any parliamentary democracy, but for our concern, some basic points about these bills, how they are bringing changes. First of all, tribunals reforms, rationalization and conditions of service bill 2021. This was actually brought last year itself. How it seeks to make changes, you should be aware about that. Bill dissolves certain existing appellate bodies and transfers their functions to other existing judicial bodies. Okay, so it is reducing the number of tribunals, the overall number of tribunals. It also makes changes to the service conditions of chairpersons and members of existing tribunals. Like term of office for chairperson and members will be 4 years for both, subject to upper age limit of 70 years for chairperson and 67 years for other members. This can be asked in prelims examination also. Okay, then the bill specifies that person should be at least 50 years of age to be eligible for appointment as chairman as well as member. Now, Essential Defence Services Bill, this replaces the earlier ordinance promulgated in June 2021. The focus area of this bill, it talks about, let's say, prohibition of the employees of those let's say defense ordinances or public sector undertakings from any kind of strikes, lockouts. Okay, so the bill allows central government to prohibit strikes, lockouts, layoffs in units engaged in essential defense services. So it seeks to, let's say, bring changes like persons participating in illegal strikes will be punished with up to 1 year of imprisonment or 10,000 fine or both. Okay, central government may prohibit strike through, let's say, directly prohibition order that will remain in force for 6 months, may be extended for another 6 months. At the same time, all such offences will be punishable under the bill that will be cognizable and non-bailable. Some stringent measures are taken for those, let's say, employees engaged in illegal lockouts or strikes or layoffs. Okay, so in defense, essential defense, let's say, establishments, ordinances, fine. So this created many, let's say, problems and a protest by these employees, and even opposition criticized this, and now this bill is passed. This was the ordinance is now replaced by this particular bill. Okay, so these inputs are essential. Again, let me tell you, this tribunal reforms and this point will be covered in ED lectures in detail. Okay, this is very small change, but this changes in the tribunal reforms, this is very important aspect from polity and governance. So that will be dealt in detail by Ansari sir surely. Okay, yes. Now moving on to next article. Insolvency code has strayed from its intent. One of the report by Parliamentary Committee on Finance, implementation of IBC, pitfalls and solution. IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, when it was introduced, since that it has been altered, many changes have been done to this IBC. It has undergone 6 amendments since 2016, and the major objective of bringing this IBC to resolve, let's say, and liquidate the assets of the failed companies, right? So for that purpose, the original intent has been, let's say, bypassed. There are concerns raised by this committee. For example, fundamental aim of the statute was to secure creditor rights so as to reduce borrowing cost with the reduction of the risk. Now this is not being attained. Second, suggested the benchmark be put in place for quantum of haircuts to be taken by the creditors. Okay, so haircuts in terms of, let's say, NPAs, non-performing assets, by the creditors, especially here the banks. Creditors are financial institutes, right? And we can say that the haircuts in its account books related to those lending amounts, those haircuts relates to basically some amount is waived off, written off from the accounts. So that amount should be restricted, some benchmark should be there. There are many, let's say, large amount of haircuts are being done by the creditors in solving this in IBC proceedings. It also expressed apprehensions over fresh graduates appointed as resolution professionals. So experienced members, professionals are not being appointed, rather the newcomers, fresh graduates are being appointed. That remains the concern in terms of its effectiveness. It said, so it was concerned over NCLT functioning without a president and 34 members short of sanctioned strength of 62. Okay, so this is Company Law Tribunal, National Company Law Tribunal, and this is important tribunal in terms of whatever the appeals which are made through this solving of a resolution through the IBC. So the number of members are at present 34 and it is working without precedent. So such concerns are raised by this report. So you should be aware about what are the problems, issues faced by this IBC, this mechanism. Okay, so again let me tell you that recently one IBC amendment bill was also passed by the government in present session. Okay, so that thing, along with all these issues, we need to have detailed discussion. So this topic will be also covered in ED lecture in detail. GS3 paper economy part. Okay, so here only the highlights of the report, but in detail we will discuss what is IBC and later on what are the amendments brought by the government, what are the issues faced by IBC, this particular mechanism in resolving all these bankruptcy issues of these companies, corporates. Fine? Okay. Improve social security for workers. Another report by another parliamentary committee on labor. It had given report related to impact of pandemic on labor. Okay, so this particular report called for the government to improve social security measures for workers. Let us understand that the PLFS, Periodic Labor Force Survey, report said that 90% of the workers work in informal sector. This is important, let's say, data that can be used in GS3 paper as well as essay paper. Informalization of Indian economy, 90% informal economy. Also, the quarterly bulletin for 2020 showed that unemployment rate in urban areas was above, for those above 15 years was 20.8%, an increase from 9.1% in January to March 2021. You can see it is almost doubled. It is also doubled. This is the situation we are facing in terms of unemployment. Along with that, the recommendations, the suggestions, strengthening social security measures and possibility of transferring the amounts, the cash amounts in the bank accounts of those workers, those who have lost the jobs, especially in the informal sectors, MSME sectors. So they should be given direct benefit transfers through the money transfers in their account. Then universal healthcare should be made legal obligation of the government. Now looking at the pandemic situation, whenever we are talking about the treatment for this COVID-19 pandemic, we can understand the amount of cost that is required, and the poor people and the, let's say, the labor workers working in informal sector, they will not be able to let's say pay that much amount of fees for COVID-19 treatment, and therefore it should be legal obligation of the government to provide such healthcare facilities. Then budgetary allocation for MG Narega should be increased. Surely that has been demand from time to time, and during last 1 year the MG Narega allocation increased. Okay, however in future also that should be continued, that is the demand. This acts as a social security or shock absorber against such kind of, let's say, natural calamities. It said an urban jobs guarantee scheme on the lines of MG Narega should be implemented. This is demand for the long time by the experts. Okay, so MG Narega provides a very important livelihood source for in the rural areas, especially during the summer season when the farm labor requirement is not there. So such kind of same, let's say, similar kind of urban employment guarantee scheme for urban poor people should be there. So that will also act as a, let's say, social security measure for urban poor people. Panel flagged the issue of lack of study by the Labour Ministry to gauge the impact of its advisories on employees recruitment and termination policies. This is technical, let's say, issue. And the committee also pulled up ministry for the delay in developing national database for unorganized workers. This is fine. Already Supreme Court had, let's say, issued the final dates to Ministry of Labours to have such national database, right? So this is becoming the problem, especially for the migrant workers. The measures, benefits are not received by the migrant laborers because the national database is not available of such migrant laborers. So such database is also required so as to deliver those benefits to those laborers by the government. Fine. So whenever there is question related to social justice GS2 paper, we can expect question on migrant laborers. GS3 paper economy part, we can expect the question on migrant laborers, and essay topic we are also expecting how migrant laborers face the problems in last 1.5 years during the pandemic times. Fine. Okay, so you can give reference to this committee report. Yes, so these were important, let's say, articles. Majority of these articles surely relates to our mains examination. No development specifically related to prelims examination. Yes. Yes, tell me. Sorry? Cognizable. Yes, cognizable, that means the offense that is being done, if it is reported, then FIR has to file. FIR has to be filed. Okay. So that is cognizable. Yes, bail will not be given immediately. You know, anticipatory bail or such provisions are there for normal crimes, civil crimes. Right, so civilian kind of, let's say, violation of laws, but non-bailable means bail will not be given unless and until the judiciary is giving that bail, right, directly.
So this is impact of the cognizable offence. If the offence is committed, FIR has to be registered.
Yes, FIR has to be registered. That there is no other option of it.
So it is an alternative to UAPA law.
Sorry?
It is an alternative to UAPA law. If the Supreme Court made an election without any evidence, you have not right to say UAPA law on that particular candidate.
No. UAPA is very stringent. Let me tell you that whatever the acts related to women, domestic violence act, or let's say criminal law that was amended in 2013 after Nirbhaya incident. So basically the crimes against women, they are also let's say non-bailable and cognizable offences. Most of them. Also crimes against children also. Okay, so you should be aware that whenever we talk about the severeness of the crime, generally they are let's say cognizable and non-bailable.
Sir, then the person who recently died in the case, why he was not granted the bail? That is so better to understand.
No, which one?
Some father Swami has died in the jail.
Stan Swami.
जो वो मर गए तो bail नहीं किया था.
Yes, that is the sections under UPA Act and preventive detention law, they were invoked there, and they are stringent measures. Okay, so some of the laws, let's say very stringent, they have different provisions, while some other, let's say, laws, they have different provisions regarding bail here. The time period about the bail provision, or let's say the authority which can give the bail, all these things are different according to the kind of crime that has been done here. Yes, any other question?
Sir, I have a general doubt, sir.
Yes.
Sir, to poverty issue, sir.
Yes.
Actually, a person has been already, they have some level of category to, and the pandemic situation only, they lost the job and they lost the income only. Then how we can say able to increasing the poverty level on the particular person? Only the economic point of only they lost in the pandemic region. Then how we can able to impose the what to the particular person is going to be poverty category?
See, under different poverty lines decided from time to time by different committees. Let's say earlier the planning commission used to have update on the poverty lines. Okay, the poverty lines decides on the amount of, let's say, the money that is generally required for, let's say, monthly average consumption of a household. A household generally considered of 5 members, suppose. So average consumption on essential goods, let's say for food grains, or let's say basic medical services. So all these are considered and a poverty line is decided. Okay, and suppose the average income of the household falls below that, then we will consider them below poverty people. Okay, and when we calculate the absolute number of people, that is called as head count ratio. Right? So now almost more than 1 year has, let's say, elapsed, and that's why we are considering that the average level of the incomes of many of the people have fallen down below the poverty line. That's why we are saying that. But again, let me tell you that the data by the government or government agency is not released yet about the increase in poverty. This is becoming the major problem of the present government. Last 6 to 7 years, no data is released here. Unemployment and poverty data, no data is released, official data. Fine?
Thank you, sir.
Okay then, so let us stop. Thank you, we'll meet tomorrow at the same time.
Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.